Quickly, hopefully this will seem familiar to you, but towards the end of Exodus 13, we see God leading His people out of oppression, out of slavery, out of cruelty, out of powerful, unjust oppressors by means of a cloud by day and fire by night. Very clear leading of God. You would think that would make it easy, but we covered this a couple of weeks ago. The first route that this cloud by day, fire by night takes them is seemingly in the wrong direction. You know, they're supposed to be heading northeast, and the cloud by day, fire by night takes them southeast. Wrong direction, or so it would seem anyway, and we're actually told that the Lord had made the Egyptians favorably disposed, so they plundered the Egyptians. They journeyed from Ramses to Sukkot, and we actually can plot that on a map. We have pretty good evidence, pretty good feel for where Ramses and Sukkot are. From there, it actually gets trickier, less clear what these places are, Pi-Hahiroth and Etham and other such places, but they're going south, eventually heading northeast to the Promised Land. From here, I'll tell you just a little foretaste of things that are to come. It's going to get worse before it gets better. In Exodus 14, the Lord, that's Yahweh, said to Moses, "Tell the Israelites to turn back." It's actually the Hebrew word shub, which is the same word for repent. So you get it. Here it actually is literal directional. Turn and go back the other direction. So did they go further south? Did they go east first, further east first, into the wilderness? And Old Testament scholars and archaeologists actually have some debate over that. But they actually went a ways and then turned back. And this is deliberate on God's part. He says, I want them to go in a certain direction, so forth, but I actually want them to turn around and go back the other way. What we're going to see is, today is the first home game of the Eagles. We're going to be here Lord's Day worshiping, so I don't want to give that too much press. But it's like the Lord is up to a football play, a screen pass, where it looks like they're vulnerable, but then He throws it behind the defense, or a misdirection play, where they're going this way and going that way. In other words, God is up to something in what He's doing here. I teach for a school named Missio Seminary, named after the missional turn we took in the early 2000s. And sometimes we're fond of saying, well, what does this mean that God is missional? God's character is missional. God engages the world in a missional way. Simply put, what it means is God is up to something. God is not just passively looking from on high. He could use His power to simply observe and say, well, you sure are a mess down there. But God is missional in that He engages in the affairs of human life and actually has seen fit to not only invite us, but involve us in that mission, in what He's doing. Not just observing what He's doing, but actually participating in what He's doing. And here, God is up to something. Now, I'll tell you what He's up to is not obvious to them, certainly at first. You don't see immediately what He's up to, but He tells Moses, actually have him reverse direction, go the other way, encamp by the sea. Directly opposite Baal Zephon, which many Old Testament scholars believe is a mountain. which is going to pin them. I'd say between a rock and a hard place, but it's actually between a rock and a wet place. In other words, they're going to end up with rock on one side, impassable mountain on one side, and water on the other. They are pinned. They are trapped. At least that's the way it's going to look. So we look at our handy-dandy map from Sukkot to, we're not exactly sure, to be honest, where Pi-Hahiroth is. And you have some critical scholars that say, oh, we don't know these places. I mean, what's the archaeological evidence for even these places existing? Do these places even exist? This is all made up. Wouldn't a coastal town still exist till the current day that we'd have some records on it? But you realize there is another explanation. Something may have happened to put these places well underground for 3 millennia or so, and we're about to see, and not so much today, but in a couple of weeks, what happened might have been. While we've got our handy-dandy map up, the end of Exodus 13 says they went to Etham. Now, there's no town of Etham here, but this is known as the wilderness of Etham. So did they go this way and then turn back and go here? In other words, is that what's going on here? They went this far? Because part of what's going to happen is Pharaoh is going to assume they got scared of the wilderness and turned back. Or they went down here and realized, we can't go that way. I mean, we can't circumnavigate the whole Red Sea, which would be this way, and so turned back. It looks like they're wandering aimlessly. And in Exodus 14, we get, through Moses, by inspiration of the Holy Spirit, 3 different viewpoints. Now, we've looked at some parables of Jesus, some healings of Jesus in the New Testament, and we've referred to before that God in the New Testament, in the Gospels, gives us 3, sometimes 4 viewpoints. I like to call them camera angles. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, particularly Matthew, Mark, and Luke will record the same events, but mention different details. It's like different camera angles on the same event. Here we've got a similar phenomenon, 3 different viewpoints, but all in the same passage, in rapid succession. And we learned quite a bit of theology, of biblical theology, and Christian life application by looking at what happens in these same events through these 3 different viewpoints. The first viewpoint is the high view. We get God's viewpoint, which in Exodus 14 is recorded first. Then the Lord, Yahweh, said to Moses, "Tell the Israelites to turn back and encamp near Pi-Hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea. They are to encamp by the sea directly opposite Baal-Zephon." Pharaoh's going to think, this is God to Moses, Pharaoh's going to think that the Israelites are wandering around in confusion, hemmed in by the desert and by the sea. He doesn't mention that, but hemmed in. "And I will harden Pharaoh's heart." Now that word again, we had a couple of messages, it's over a year ago now, on the hardening of Pharaoh's heart. But that's that Hebrew word hazak. And that is strengthening what's already in Pharaoh's heart, which is wicked, selfish, short-sighted, self-centered. I'm going to allow him to fester in that, harden like concrete hardens, and embolden him. Turns out in foolish direction. And he's going to pursue them. but I will gain glory for myself through Pharaoh and all his army, and the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord, that I am Yahweh, that I am the I am that I am. That's Yahweh. Even the Egyptians, by the time this is done, even the wicked, oppressive, enslaving, unjust Egyptians are going to know that I, Yahweh, am God. So the Israelites did this. Well, from viewpoint one, what we can see through this lens is that God has a purpose and a plan. Now, I think it might be helpful for us to clarify right at this point that God does not tell Moses what the plan is. He certainly doesn't tell the Israelites what the plan is. All he has told Moses up to this point is, have them do this, I've got a plan. Now, we who've been reading the Bible for much of our lives, those of us who know the story, we know what the plan is. But the plan so far is to get my people trapped, pinned between the mountains and the river. All right? And I'm going to get glory through this. That's all we know up to this point. God has a plan. Here is the next step of the plan. Well, that next step sounds like we're going to get trapped with the Egyptians chasing us. But God has a plan. From here we get viewpoint two. Viewpoint two is the view of Pharaoh. When the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, Pharaoh and his officials changed their minds about them and said, "What have we done? We've let the Israelites go and have lost their services." And remember, they sent them out in haste when the firstborn of all of them, down to the animals and even the slave girl at the mill, had been killed. So in great terror and great haste and great impetuousness, they said, "Go, go, 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 go." But by this point, is it a few days? Is it a week? They realize, we just sent out into the wilderness all our free labor. It really does stink to lose all our kids. I mean, we don't want that. But we've just compounded the grief by sending out all our free labor. Maybe that wasn't such a good idea. So he had his chariot made ready, his own chariot. So he's going out himself. And he took his army with him, 600 of the best chariots. Right? You might remember from a month or so ago, he likely would have sent his northern army unit, which would have been about half his army, 50,000 strong. The Egyptian army at that time, in addition to the 50,000 normal infantry troops, would have had about 1,000 charioteers, which would be, part cavalry, part tank in contemporary conception. And it looks like he's taking 600, over half of his chariots he's going to use to pursue defenseless homesteaders and wagons. I mean, that's essentially what he's doing. With his officers over all of them. The Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, so that he did this, so that he pursued the Israelites, who were up to that point marching out boldly. The Hebrew idiom there is with a high hand. That is, in fact, sometimes the Torah mentions those who sin with a high hand. It's a more serious kind of sin. In other words, flagrantly. The Israelites, up to that point, were leaving confidently. Organized, unhidden, unprotected, boldly. The Egyptians, all Pharaoh's horses and chariots, horsemen and troops. Good night, man. What do you think you're pursuing here? That you're gathering all these troops. He pursued the Israelites and overtook them. That is, he caught up with them. As they camped by the sea near Pi-Hahiroth, opposite Baal-Zephon. Now, from viewpoint 2, we can kind of see what he's thinking. Well, he thinks he's got them trapped. Is he going to slaughter them? Is he going to slaughter those who would resist him and capture the rest? Take the women as booty? He's up to no good. We don't have to conjecture much. And it looks like, for all the world, at this point, it looks like he's got them overpowered, pinned, and he has them at his will. But we can see, from the vantage point God gives us in the unfolding narrative, as this is recorded in His Word, that things are not always what they seem. That takes us to viewpoint 3. The viewpoint of the sheep. The viewpoint of the fish looking up from underneath. Viewpoint 3. The viewpoint of the Israelites. As Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up, and there's the Egyptians. And those do not look like friendly Indians. I mean, they're armed to the teeth, angry and in hot pursuit, and ready to make war. They're terrified and cried out to the Lord. And this is what they said to Moses. What? There weren't enough graves in Egypt? There's a shortage of graves in Egypt? And you can hear the Jewish culture is famous for this. The gallows humor, the sarcasm. Not enough graves in Egypt? That we've got to come out to the wilderness and be buried out here? Why did you bring us out to the desert to die? Didn't we tell you in Egypt, just leave us alone? Just quit meddling in. Get your nose out. It'd be better to serve the Egyptians. Didn't we say that to you? Didn't you? You should have listened to us then. You realize they're talking about what they said in Exodus 5. That's 9 chapters ago. And you look at this. It'd been better to serve the Egyptians and die here. We were better off slaves. That's what they say. That's what comes out of their mouths. Can you believe it? You look at it and you say, good night, people. 9 chapters. Did you learn nothing from the 10 plagues? Did you learn nothing from the cloud by day, fire by night? How can that come out of your mouth? I hate to say it. I'm embarrassed to say it, but it's true. It is not hard for me to imagine what they were thinking, what they were feeling. When I was about 7 years old, 7 and a half, I was watching one of my cowboy shows on TV, and all of a sudden my mom and dad said, we're all getting in the car and going somewhere, and I remember. But I'm in the middle of my show. I think it was Rawhide. I mean, let's see what happens to Rowdy Yates. I mean, why do I have to go? For heaven's sake, why are you pulling me away from my show? And my dad said words to me that I've never forgotten. And you'll know why when I tell you in a bit. He said, "You know, son, the Bible says, always season your words with salt. And that may be because soon you may eat them." They were gathering us in the car and pulling me away from my precious cowboy show because they were taking us to get a puppy. We named that puppy Happy. I was the one that named the puppy. I said, "Let's name him Happy because I'm so happy." I remember that to this day because what stupid words were coming out of my mouth. And I'd like to say now I've learned. You know, some 40, 50 years later, now I've learned. But I got to tell you, if a tornado touches down near my house and blows the windows out, I'm not sure I respond, if I'm honest, the way one Chris Young and his family responded. I mean, they were terrified at the time. But you know, everyone who's contacted Pastor Jung has come back with the same report. People at Missio Seminary, Korean students, has said, I mean, they were terrified at the time, but they actually are in good spirits. They're trusting the Lord. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'm in that caliber. I'll tell you what it honest to goodness does. It makes me envy the Spirit of God that has regenerated this man to this extent that he could face even a tornado damage to his house in a way that's trusting the Lord. And yes, through the hardship and discomfort, it's not easy, not good, but the Lord's up to something. Eager to see what he does. Well, needless to say, that's not the way the Israelites are responding in Exodus 14. They are so terrified that they begin allowing things to come out of their mouths that are just egregious, embarrassing. And I'd like to say that I would have done better. But I know that I would require the Spirit of God working in me to do better than they did. Here's how Moses responds. But Moses answered the people, "Don't be afraid. Stand firm and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. These Egyptians that you're looking at, you're never going to see them again." Now, the Israelites don't seem to have changed much between Exodus 5 and Exodus 14. But you know what? Moses has changed. Moses has matured and been transformed. Remember in Exodus 5, Moses was with the people. "God, how can you do this? Ever since we've done what you told us to do, we've been nothing but further oppressed, and you haven't rescued your people at all." That was Moses at the end of Exodus 5. In Exodus 14, rather than standing with the people to God, Moses is standing with God to the people. So Moses has matured. Have you? Have I? And then he says this, "The Lord will fight for you." And now I actually need the Hebrew because there are some nuances here worth unpacking. The Lord will fight for you. And here's the Hebrew, "Va'atem taharashuk." That hifil imperfect verb has an overlap of the root, the core is to stay still. But it has overlap of staying still in motion or staying still in spirit or particularly staying still in speech. The nuance is kind of like a phraseology or a means of communication that has taken place in our family for a long time. I'm not sure I got it from Moses. It's possible I did. I mean, I've been reading the Bible a long time, but I'm not sure I did. But something like this. You know, I hear Linda, I hear my wife in the kitchen, and I hear dishes falling. Todd, come quick! The shelves are falling, the shelves are breaking, the dishes are breaking, come, what's going on? And I come rushing in, and I go, I see what happened. The one peg in the shelf came out. Well, what are we going to do? I can't reach that. The dishes are falling and whatnot. Well, it's okay, honey. I will put the peg back and fix the shelf while you stand by watching silently. You see, that's now, as I say it that way, I can kind of hear the obnoxiousness in that. Anyway, this has actually now become a phrase in my family. Now my boys have learned it. It was great when I did it, but now my boys do it to me. And I say something, hey, I thought you were giving me a lift home. What are we doing at Home Depot? Well, you said that you wanted me to mow the lawn this week for you. And I know the lawnmower is low on oil, so I'm going to go in and get a couple of quarts of oil while you wait here in the car silently. You see how the phrase works? That's this phrase. Va'atem ta hasharuk. It's imperfect, so it's going on at the same time. That's the imperfect tense. And it has a merger of staying still and also staying quiet, without the obnoxious kind of thing to it. Doesn't have that intonation. And here's the point. The Lord will fight for you with you just still and out of harm's way. The Lord will fight for you, and you're not going to have to raise a single sword. You're not going to have to throw a single punch to these Egyptian soldiers' faces. It's got that intonation. While you are safely on the side, the Lord is going to take care of this for you on your behalf. All right? So there's that intonation. That's a possible translation. Especially since, and we're going to see this in a couple of weeks, the Lord's very next order is for them to move. I'm less inclined to think that this phraseology in this case means not to move in terms of their physical location, not to move anything other than, well, their mouth. So here's another possibility that's fully within the semantic range of this Hebrew phraseology. The Lord will fight for you if you would just be quiet. Now, particularly given what's just been coming out of these Israelite children, sheep, mouths, I mean, I can actually hear in the overtones of this Moses saying to these Israelite ready to rise up in mutiny against him, people, calm down. You do not need to stink and freak out. The Lord has got this. Yahweh is going to fight for you. He's going to wipe out the Egyptians on your behalf if you would just shut up. The Lord will take up your cause. The Lord will take this up for you if you would just be quiet. Now, I've got to tell you, I read this narrative, And the way I really want to preach this is, look at these foolish, stupid Israelites. But I got to tell you, I can't get but about 3 tongue clucks in to my sanctimonious observation of how rotten the Israelites are as I'm tisk. Oh, good night, these stupid Israelites. When honest to goodness, it's like the voice of the Spirit hits me, Todd Mangum, right between the eyes and says, but Todd, look at the consternation that you bring before me in your most immediate trial of late. Yeah, look, how could they say this after the 10 plagues? Yeah, but Mangum, don't you remember how I cared for you, how I cared for Missio Seminary through the financial duress of 2008? Don't you remember how I took care of you in giving you employment when you were beginning to look for work in Dallas, Texas in 1998? And it goes back. Don't you remember how I provided a godly wife for you beyond what you ever could think or imagine, far beyond what you ever asked? When you were all consternated in high school about when what you thought was the true love of your life broke up with you. All right, actually it was mutual, okay? All right. She didn't dump me, it was mutual. I mean, and on. In other words, I've got history with the Lord too. And if I think about it and look back, yes, He's cared for me step by step. But the moment there's a trial that calls for a new exercise of faith today, I'm far too prone to respond like the Israelites did. So I trust you are benefiting and are edified by Exodus 14:14 today. But I have to tell you, honest to goodness, this message is, if it's for no one else, it's for Todd Mangum. The Lord will fight for you. The Lord will care for you. The Lord will take up for you if you would just be quiet. So yes, be still and know that I am God. Be tranquil of spirit as you approach the Lord, and rest in the care of our good shepherd. Three different viewpoints in Exodus 14. And the point of this is, do you see that the point of this is not, as tempted as I am to put it this way, teaching theology as my day job as I do, is, now see, you've got to take God's viewpoint on this. But one, that's impossible. And two, that actually is not required. In Exodus 14, it's not that the Israelites have to fully understand what God's plan is, and now, oh, okay, that's what you're going to do. Then we're, all right, so we're not going to... No. You don't have to fully understand all that God is up to. You know that all that you and I are required to do is understand He's got it covered. And just be quiet. Participate step by step as He directs us. But just be quiet. Now, I normally leave my smartphone on the bench, on the seats, hesitate to say that with some of these little ears listening, but anyway, I normally leave it on the seat. But today I brought it up because I want to close today by giving us 2 minutes to just be quiet. Now, I know what sorts of trials and consternations that I come into the service with this morning. So I know what I'm going to be bringing in silence before the Lord. I don't know what you're going to bring before the Lord, but I want to give you 2 minutes to silently bring what stresses, anxieties, troubles, thoughts, issues to the Lord. Now, I warn you, 2 minutes does not sound like a long time. But 2 minutes of silence can actually feel like a long time. Let's bow together and just be quiet. Amen.